What you are seeing only exists in North Korea. Today, you'll discover 14 things so strange you'll think they came out of a science fiction movie. But no, they are 100% real and happen every day in North Korea. Get ready, because number 4 is the most bizarre of all. So, let's go. Number 14. An inaccessible digital world. While the rest of the planet increasingly connects via the internet, North Korea keeps its population virtually isolated from the digital world. Access to the World Wide Web is a privilege restricted to very few people, generally senior government officials and diplomats. For most North Koreans, the only option available is a national intranet called Kwangmyong, which offers limited content strictly controlled by the regime. This closed network works like an extremely censored and reduced version of the internet we know. The few individuals authorized to access the global internet face a rigorous approval process and constant surveillance. In some academic institutions, for example, users are closely monitored by supervisors who control their every online movement. The government systematically blocks access to popular social networks and foreign websites, fearing the spread of information that could challenge the official narrative. This policy of digital isolation serves to keep the population uninformed and alienated from the realities of the outside world. The lack of internet access not only limits the flow of information, but also impedes the country's technological and economic development. While neighboring nations thrive in the digital age, North Korea remains largely disconnected, perpetuating its isolation. Number 13. Restricted waves, TV under total control. In North Korea, forget about Netflix or any other streaming service. The government banned satellite TV, leaving citizens only 4 state-owned channels. These channels have limited programming focused on regime propaganda. Watching Western TV can result in severe punishment, such as being sent to forced labor camps. The news follows a predictable pattern: praise for Kim Jong-un, criticism of the US, and glorification of previous leaders. Interestingly, the programs even promote specific eating habits, encouraging citizens to eat just 2 meals a day. The government claims it is for health reasons, but many suspect it is due to food shortages. Number 12. The K-pop ban, music as a threat. While K-pop gains fans around the world, in North Korea it is seen as a threat. Kim Jong-un considers South Korean music and entertainment to be corrupting influences. Listening to K-pop can lead to up to 15 years in prison. Even more shocking, a 2022 law made smuggling South Korean shows, including K-pop, crime punishable by death. There are disturbing reports of public executions of people accused of distributing K-pop videos. Regime forces citizens to watch these executions, calling the condemned social evil. Number 11. Controlled hairstyles, the regime's hair fashion. In North Korea, even your hair is regulated by the government. There is an official list of approved hairstyles for men and women. Deviating from these options may result in punishment. For men, spiky or gelled hair is a no-no. Women cannot have layered cuts or bob styles. The halls display illustrated guides with the only styles permitted by Kim Jong-un's regime. Women have 15 hairstyle options, which vary according to their marital status. Married women must keep their hair short, while single women can have it longer. Men also have 15 options, with a maximum length of 5 centimeters, 7 centimeters for seniors. Interestingly, Kim Jong-un excluded his own hairstyle from these restrictions. In 2015, it was rumored that he ordered all men to copy his unique style. Number 10. Ban on cowboys and Western clothing. Your favorite pair of jeans can get you into serious trouble. The Kim regime sees jeans as a symbol of capitalism and the United States. Therefore, they decided to completely ban this item from citizens' wardrobes. But it doesn't stop there. Western t-shirts, skirts, and suits are also prohibited. It's as if there were a fashion police watching the streets. The government goes so far as to publish articles in official newspapers warning young people against Western fashion trends. They insist that North Koreans must wear traditional clothing, such as the hanbok, preserve their culture. What if someone dares to defy these rules? Consequences are surprising. Anyone caught wearing prohibited clothing on the street may be forced to wait at the curb until a special patrol makes a thorough inspection of the area. Afterwards, the fashion offenders are taken to a government office, where they must confess in writing to their fashion crimes. The most incredible thing is that these style criminals can only return home if someone brings them clothes that are deemed appropriate. Number 9. The fake village. Life-size propaganda. On the border between the Koreas, there is a ghost village called Kijongdong. The North Korean government claims it is a prosperous place, with schools, a hospital, and 200 residents. In reality, it is an elaborate act. This peace village is pure propaganda, designed to entice South Koreans to defect. The buildings are just facades without interiors. At night, the lights shine as if the place is full of life, but observers confirm no one lives there. In the past, loudspeakers in the village played North Korean propaganda. In a good-natured response, South Korea started playing K-pop on its own speakers, making the situation almost comical. Number 8. Prison by association. Family punishment. People are often imprisoned without trial for crimes, such as tuning into foreign radio stations or making comments considered insulting to the regime. The government uses a cruel tactic called 3 generations of punishment. If someone commits a crime, their children and grandchildren are also punished, often with life imprisonment. Children born in prison grow up as prisoners. Entire families can be incarcerated for minor infractions by a single member. The infamous Camp 14 is a common destination for these prisoners, where they are forced to work in inhumane conditions. Number 7. Prohibition of international telephone calls. This is a country where making a simple international call is a serious crime. It seems absurd, doesn't it? Well, in the lands of Kim Jong-un, having a cell phone does not mean freedom to talk to whoever you want. The more than 3 million mobile phone users can only make local calls. Call abroad? No way. If someone is caught trying to contact relatives or friends who have fled the country, the consequences can be dire. Political prison camps await those who dare defy this rule. But like everywhere, there are always those who find loopholes in the system. There is a flourishing underground market for cell phones and chips coming from China. Near the border, some people risk everything to use Chinese networks and make international calls. It's a dangerous game of cat and mouse with the authorities. To avoid being caught, North Koreans who venture into this prohibited communication use tricks worthy of spy film. Quick conversation, false names, and escapes to remote mountainous areas are some of the tactics to evade constant surveillance. The reason behind this ban? The regime fears that information about the country's real conditions will leak to the outside world. Keeping citizens isolated is a form of control. Desperate attempt to hide human rights violations occurring within their borders. Number 6. Bizarre basketball rules. Kim's style sport. Even basketball follows unique rules, a reflection of its leader's eccentric passion for the sport. Kim Jong-un, a well-known admirer of the Chicago Bulls in the 90s, inherited from his father not only power, but also his love for basketball and the desire to reinvent it. North Korean courts are the stage for a game that defies the sport's conventional logic. Imagine a game where dunks are worth 3 points, 3-pointers that don't touch the rim are worth 4, and in the final seconds, a basket can be worth an impressive 8. But be careful with free throws. Each mistake costs you a precious point. And, contrary to the competitive essence of basketball, games can end in a draw here. Numbers 5. Prisoners in their own country. Freedom of movement, a basic right in much of the world, is severely restricted in North Korea. Citizens live as prisoners in their own land, unable to move freely within the national territory or travel abroad without prior authorization. Control over population movement is so strict that even visits to family in other provinces require a complex bureaucratic process. It is necessary to obtain a special certificate issued by the local People's Committee, procedure that can take weeks or even months. The few internal tourist trips allowed are limited to specific locations, such as Mount Paektu, considered sacred in the regime's official mythology. Even these tours are organized for selected groups of model workers, students and farmers who often participate more out of fear of punishment than out of their own free will. For the few foreigners authorized to visit the country, surveillance is constant, and access to certain regions is strictly prohibited. The North Korean government maintains obsessive control over the image it projects to the outside world. Attempting to leave the country without permission is considered treason and can result in the death penalty. Despite the extreme risks, some desperate North Koreans are still trying to escape, facing the possibility of summary execution by border guards if they are captured. Those who manage to escape and are subsequently recaptured face dire consequences, including torture, forced labor, and internment in political prison camps. Kim Jong-un's regime does not tolerate any challenge to its absolute control over the population. Number 4. Struggles for energy. North Korea's energy difficulties are so severe that the country is literally in the dark at night. Satellite images show a shocking contrast between the bright Korean peninsula to the south and the dark void to the north. After the collapse of the Soviet Union in the 1990s, which provided much of the country's energy, North Korea was plunged into an energy crisis from which it never fully recovered. While their neighbors shine in the darkness, North Korean cities remain plunged in shadow. Average electricity consumption per person in North Korea is absurdly low, compared to international standards. This results in frequent and prolonged blackouts, drastically affecting the population's quality of life. Many daily activities come to a halt at dusk due to a lack of lighting. Interestingly, in some areas near the border with China, the government orders residents to keep their lights on at night, even if they have to generate their own energy. This measure aims to create a false impression of prosperity for external observers. Energy shortages impact every sector of North Korean society, from industry to domestic life. Many families turn to improvised solutions, such as homemade solar panels, to meet their basic electricity needs. This dramatic situation illustrates the isolation and difficulties faced by the country, creating an almost surreal scenario where an entire nation lives practically disconnected from the modern world. Number 3. Religious freedom. In North Korea, religious freedom is practically non-existent. The government exercises strict control over the beliefs and spiritual practices of its citizens, transforming the country into a true desert of faith. Although the North Korean constitution supposedly guarantees religious freedom, the reality is quite different. Kim Jong-un's regime demands absolute loyalty, leaving no room for devotions beyond the personality cult of the ruling family. The consequences for those who dare to profess a faith are severe and often brutal. Reports from survivors describe torture, arrests, and even executions of people caught engaged in religious activities. A few churches in Pyongyang, the capital, are nothing more than state-controlled facades, created to give a false impression of religious tolerance in the eyes of the outside world. In reality, even possession of sacred texts like the Bible can result in extreme punishments. Number 2. Careers dictated by the state. In North Korea, the concept of career choice as we know it simply does not exist. The government exercises complete control over citizens' careers, assigning jobs based on political and social criteria, not individual skills or preference. Officially, the country claims to have a 100% employment rate, as all citizens are required by law to work. However, this statistic masks a reality of lack of freedom and limited opportunities. The job assignment process begins early in the lives of North Koreans. After completing their studies, young people are directed to occupations determined by the state, often without any consideration for their talents or personal aspirations. Technical school graduates are typically sent to factories, while those with a background in agriculture are assigned to collective farms. Even the few who gain access to university education have little influence over their professional destiny. Once assigned a job, it is extremely difficult to change careers. Most North Koreans remain in the same role until retirement, regardless of their satisfaction or performance. This rigidity in the work system stifles innovation and personal development. Families' social status and political loyalty have a significant bearing on the employment opportunities offered to its members. This system perpetuates inequalities and reinforces the regime's control over all aspects of citizens' lives. These 6 unique characteristics of North Korea paint a picture of a nation where individual freedom is severely restricted in the name of state control. From suppressing faith to micromanaging careers, Kim Jong-un's regime maintains near total dominance over the lives of its citizens. The imposed isolation, both physical and digital, contributes to keeping the population in a state of misinformation and submission. Economic and energy difficulties further aggravate the situation, creating a scenario of deprivation that contrasts sharply with the world beyond its borders. Understanding these peculiarities helps us better understand the challenges faced by the North Korean people and the complexity of the geopolitical situation on the Korean peninsula. While the rest of the world rapidly advances into the 21st century, North Korea remains an enigma, a country where time seems to stand still and where reality often defies understanding. Number 1. Price of lack of respect. In North Korea, the Kim family's cult of personality reaches unimaginable levels. Any action or statement that could be interpreted as an insult to leaders or the government is treated as blasphemy and severely punished. This obsessive control extends to all aspects of everyday life. In every North Korean residence, portraits of leaders Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il are mandatory. Inspectors carry out regular visits to ensure these images are in perfect condition and receive the respect they deserve. Neglecting to clean these portraits can result in serious charges. The reverence required goes beyond the care taken with the images. Seemingly trivial events, such as falling asleep during an official speech, can have fatal consequences. In 2015, the defense minister was publicly executed for allegedly dozing off during a meeting with Kim Jong-un. Control over individual expression is so extreme that even sarcastic comments or indirect criticism of the regime are prohibited. The government carries out awareness campaigns to warn citizens about the dangers of making jokes or using irony when referring to state policy. Consequences for those found disrespectful can include not only individual punishments, but also the persecution of entire family members. Many end up sent to political prison camps, where they face inhumane conditions and forced labor. Now I want to hear from you. Are you interested in finding out more hidden facts about North Korea? If you want part 2 of this video, comment below in the comments. Well, that's it, and until next time, Curious One.